God is about to expose something, and this is not just a message, a spiritual preparation, and a wake-up call. This moment is sacred. You didn't click on this video by accident. Something is being revealed in this very hour. Heaven is speaking, and you must listen. This message is urgent. It's not meant to scare you, it's meant to prepare you. If you ignore it, you may miss a turning point in your life. But if you open your heart right now, you'll see that God has been orchestrating this moment for you to receive the truth, the clarity, and the shift your soul has been crying out for. You have 10 seconds to open your heart, because what's coming next may just bring you to your knees and into a breakthrough. 777 There is a heavenly completion happening in your life. What once felt like delay is now transforming into divine perfection. You are being aligned with grace, abundance, and breakthrough. Type 777 to affirm your season of divine alignment. 888 A wave of financial breakthrough, spiritual awakening, and emotional healing is being released over you. God is restoring what the enemy tried to steal. Type 888 to affirm you are walking into overflow and favor. 555 Change is here, not to harm you, but to elevate you. Transitions may feel uncomfortable, but trust, God is reshaping your life for greater. Type 555 to declare your faith in His perfect transformation. 999 Endings are sacred. Something powerful is being completed so a new divine beginning can emerge. Don't fear the shift, it's making room for answered prayers. Type 999 to embrace the new season. 111 This is a moment of divine clarity. You are in direct alignment with God's plan. Stay focused. You're walking into answered prayers and open doors. Type 111 to affirm your connection to divine direction. 222 Balance is being restored in your mind, your relationships, and your spirit. Trust that the pieces are falling into place. Type 222 to affirm peace, love, and harmony are surrounding you. 333 You never know what kind of miracle is waiting for you next. Don't give up hope and keep moving forward with your beautiful heart, open and loving. Everything is coming. Type 333 to affirm. 1212 God is activating a double portion in your life. Double joy, double peace, double provision. You are not forgotten, you are being prepared. Type 1212 to affirm your season of divine increase. 1010 Divine order is taking over. Everything is happening exactly as it should. Even the closed doors are guiding you to better. Trust the process. Type 1010 to affirm divine alignment and timing. You are not alone. Angels have been assigned to guide you, protect you, and lift you higher. That tug in your spirit is real, God is speaking. 2323 New partnerships, divine connections, and restored relationships are on the way. God is placing the right people in your path. Type 2323 to affirm your soul tribe is finding you. Miracles are closer than you think. Don't be discouraged by how things look. God is famous for last-minute breakthroughs. You are safe in God's care. He is healing your heart, mending broken places, and giving you new strength. What's ahead will be peaceful and bright. You are stepping into a cycle of abundance and divine success. Opportunities you once dreamed of are becoming reality. You are a vessel of light. Even in darkness, your faith shines. Your prayers have power, and heaven is listening. The wait wasn't wasted. Every tear, every battle, and every late-night prayer has planted seeds for the miracle ahead. Heaven is building something strong and unshakable in your life. The foundation is faith. The walls are peace. The roof is favor. You're making progress, even when it doesn't feel like it. Each step is guided. Each day is significant. Your breakthrough is building up quietly. When your heart is tired, God steps in. You don't have to do it alone anymore. Lean into His love, it will carry you. Your creativity, your spirit, your kindness, none of it has gone unnoticed. God is highlighting you for something big. A sudden shift is coming. It will feel like it came out of nowhere, but it's everything you've been preparing for. Stay faithful. You're being guided by the Spirit and protected by angels. You've been strong for so long. Now it's your time to receive. The deepening of trust, embracing God's process. One of the most challenging yet beautiful truths in our walk of faith is the realization that trusting God is not a one-time decision, but a continuous process. It is easy to trust God in moments of clarity, when His plans seem obvious, and when everything falls into place. But the true depth of trust is often forged in the fire of difficulty, uncertainty, and waiting. God's process of refining our trust is not instantaneous. It takes time, patience, and endurance. As we journey through life, we must understand that trust is built gradually, often one step at a time. In moments of confusion or hardship, God is not distant. He is actively shaping us, teaching us to rely not on our own understanding but on His wisdom and timing. The process of learning to trust God fully often involves us walking through valleys where the path is unclear. It is in these moments that we must let go of our desire to control the outcome and instead trust that God is in control of every step we take. Trusting God during the hard times means allowing Him to transform our perspective. Instead of viewing challenges as setbacks or obstacles, we begin to see them as opportunities for growth. Every difficulty we face is a tool God uses to refine our hearts and deepen our faith. When we trust God in the midst of trials, we begin to develop a deeper sense of peace and confidence in His ability to lead us, even when the way forward seems unclear. The courage to let go and trust God's timing. One of the most difficult aspects of trusting God is letting go of our own timelines and plans. We often want things to happen on our terms, and we can become anxious or discouraged when things don't unfold the way we envision them. Letting go of our need for control and trusting God's timing is an act of great faith. God's timing is often very different from our own. He does not operate on our schedules or deadlines. He sees the bigger picture and understands what is best for us in the long run. Trusting God's timing means surrendering our impatience and resting in the knowledge that He knows exactly when the right time will come. While we may feel like things are taking too long, God's timing is always perfect, and His delays are not denials. When we trust God's timing, we release the pressure of making things happen on our own and allow Him to open doors at just the right moment. Learning to trust in God's timing requires us to focus on the present moment instead of anxiously waiting for the future. When we learn to be content where we are, trusting that God has us exactly where He wants us, we find peace. Trusting God's timing isn't about passivity, it's about active faith. We continue to walk forward in obedience, knowing that God will guide us when the time is right. Trusting God with our hearts, vulnerability and faith. Trusting God means being vulnerable before Him. It means being willing to open up our hearts fully, allowing God into the deepest places of our lives. When we trust God, we acknowledge that He knows us completely, yet He loves us unconditionally. This is a truth that is sometimes difficult to accept, especially when we feel unworthy or afraid of what God might find in the hidden corners of our hearts. However, vulnerability is an essential part of our faith journey because it allows us to experience God's love and healing in the most intimate way. Vulnerability is not weakness, it is strength. It takes courage to be open before God, to share our fears, desires, and pain, and to trust that He will meet us with grace and compassion. In moments of vulnerability, we learn that God is not distant or uninterested in our struggles. He is close, eager to heal our wounds, and to transform our hearts. The more we trust God with our vulnerability, the more we discover the depth of His love for us. True trust in God involves being willing to let go of our masks and pretenses, allowing Him to see the parts of us we often try to hide. God is not shocked by our brokenness or imperfections. He already knows every part of us. And yet, He still loves us completely. Trusting God with our hearts means allowing ourselves to be fully known by Him, knowing that He will always love and accept us as we are, while gently transforming us into who He created us to be. The importance of trusting God in the midst of change. Life is full of change, whether it's a new season, a move to a different place, a change in relationships, or a shift in circumstances. Change often brings with it a sense of uncertainty and fear of the unknown. However, trusting God during times of change is essential for maintaining peace and hope. When we face change, we may feel anxious or out of control, but we can trust that God never changes. His character, His promises, and His love for us remain constant, no matter what circumstances change. Trusting God in times of change means anchoring ourselves in His unshakable presence. Instead of focusing on the uncertainty of the situation, we can fix our eyes on the certainty of who God is and His ability to guide us through any transition. Trusting God with the changes in our lives allows us to release our fear of the unknown. Even when we don't know what the future holds, we can be confident that God does. He is with us every step of the way, leading us into new seasons of growth and blessing. By trusting Him in times of change, we open ourselves to the new things He wants to do in our lives, knowing that He works all things for our good. The power of trusting God with our relationships, whether family, friends, or romantic, are an important part of our lives. However, they can also bring challenges, disappointments, and hurt. Trusting God with our relationships means surrendering our expectations and allowing Him to lead us in how we relate to others. God desires for us to have healthy, loving relationships that reflect His love. When we trust God in our relationships, we trust that He will guide us in how we communicate, forgive, and serve one another. Trusting God means relying on His wisdom in handling conflict and seeking His peace in moments of disagreement. Sometimes, trust in relationships is broken, and it's in those moments of hurt that we must turn to God for healing and guidance. Trusting God with our relationships means trusting Him to restore and mend what has been broken. It also means trusting that He will protect us from harmful relationships and lead us to the ones that will help us grow in faith. Ultimately, trusting God with our relationships is about surrendering our desire to control others and trusting that He knows what is best for us. As we trust God with our relationships, we can let go of the pressure to fix things ourselves and instead rely on His perfect timing and wisdom. The gift of trusting God for our future. It's natural to feel anxious about the future. The unknowns of what's to come can be overwhelming, especially when we are facing major life decisions. But God calls us to trust Him for the future, knowing that He holds every moment in His hands. Trusting God for our future means resting in the certainty that He has a good plan for us. While we cannot predict what will happen tomorrow, we can trust that God is already there, preparing the way for us. His plans are always for our good, even when we can't see how they will unfold. Trusting God for the future is also about learning to live in the present. Instead of worrying about what's ahead, we can focus on living faithfully in the moment, knowing that God will guide us into the next step when the time is right. Trusting God for the future means releasing our fears and anxieties, believing that He will take care of us no matter what comes our way. Living a life of gratitude through trust. A life of trust is a life of gratitude. When we trust God, we begin to see His hand in every moment of our lives, in the joys, the challenges, the victories, and the struggles. Trust opens our eyes to the countless ways God is working for our good, even when we don't fully understand. Gratitude and trust go hand in hand. When we trust that God is faithful and good, we naturally become more thankful for His provision, His presence, and His guidance. Gratitude is the fruit of trust, a response that says, "God, I know You are in control, and I am thankful for Your constant care." Living a life of gratitude in the midst of trust means acknowledging God's goodness in every season, whether we feel like things are going our way or not. Gratitude reminds us that God is with us, and it strengthens our trust in His faithfulness. Certainly. Let's continue expanding upon the theme of trusting in God and how that trust plays out in different areas of our lives, from overcoming fears to embracing divine purpose. The healing power of trusting God with our pain. Pain is an inevitable part of life, whether it's physical, emotional, or spiritual. One of the most profound acts of trust is allowing God to heal our pain rather than trying to numb it or fix it ourselves. Pain, especially when it is deep, can make us question God's presence or His goodness. We may feel abandoned, isolated, or like the weight of our suffering is too much to bear. However, trusting God with our pain means acknowledging that He is near to the brokenhearted and that He desires to bring us comfort and healing. God does not expect us to hide our pain or pretend it doesn't exist. He invites us to come to Him with our hurts, disappointments, and wounds, trusting that He will restore us. Trusting God in pain doesn't mean that the pain goes away immediately, but it does mean that we have faith that He will walk with us through the suffering and ultimately use it for our good. God's healing power comes in many forms. Sometimes it's a gradual process, healing us over time as we surrender to His care. Other times, it's instantaneous, with God's presence bringing immediate comfort. But the key is that we must trust Him to handle our pain. When we do, we allow His healing work to begin, knowing that He is not only able to heal us but desires to restore us to wholeness. Trusting God with our weaknesses and imperfections. None of us are perfect. We all have weaknesses, struggles, and areas of our lives where we fall short. Trusting God with our weaknesses means accepting that we do not have to be perfect in order to be loved or used by Him. In fact, it is often in our imperfections that God's grace shines most brightly. God is not looking for perfect people. He is looking for hearts that are willing to trust Him with everything, including our failures and shortcomings. When we trust God with our weaknesses, we admit that we are in need of His strength, and in doing so, we make room for His power to work through us. Instead of trying to hide or fix our flaws on our own, we surrender them to God, allowing Him to transform and use them for His glory. Trusting God with our imperfections also means releasing the fear of judgment from others. We don't have to pretend to have it all together. God sees us as we are, broken but loved, flawed but redeemed. Trusting Him means allowing ourselves to be vulnerable before Him, knowing that He is always ready to pick us up, dust us off, and help us move forward. Trusting God in times of waiting can be one of the most challenging aspects of life, especially when we are waiting for answers, healing, or direction. Trusting God in times of waiting means surrendering our anxiety about the future and learning to embrace His perfect timing. Often, waiting feels like a season of inactivity or frustration, but in reality, God is using that time to prepare us, refine our hearts, and strengthen our faith. Trusting God and waiting involves choosing patience over impatience and peace over worry. Instead of constantly wondering, why isn't it happening yet, or what's taking so long, we can ask God to teach us what we need to learn during this time. Waiting on God is not a passive activity, it is an active, intentional choice to trust that He is still at work, even when we don't see immediate results. While waiting, we can focus on what God is doing in us rather than just what He will do for us. It's a time to grow deeper in our relationship with Him, to learn to rely on Him more fully, and to develop patience, endurance, and hope. God often uses seasons of waiting to prepare us for what is to come, and when we trust Him in those times, we position ourselves for the fulfillment of His plans at just the right moment. Trusting God with our fears and anxieties. Fear and anxiety are natural human responses to uncertainty, danger, or the unknown. But for the believer, trusting God with our fears means allowing His perfect love to cast out fear. It means recognizing that, while fear is a normal emotion, it doesn't have to control us. God calls us to cast all our anxieties on Him, knowing that He cares for us. Trusting God in the face of fear involves bringing our worries and anxieties to Him rather than allowing them to overwhelm us. When we trust God with our fears, we acknowledge that He is bigger than anything that frightens us. His love is stronger than our fear, and His presence is more powerful than any anxiety. Faith does not mean the absence of fear, but rather, it means choosing to trust God in spite of it. It means surrendering our anxieties and trusting that God is with us, walking through our fears with us, and leading us into peace. By trusting God in times of fear, we allow His peace to rule in our hearts and we find strength to move forward, even in the midst of uncertainty. The joy of trusting God in service. Trusting God is not just a personal journey, it is also a communal one. Trusting God in service to others means stepping out in faith, even when we feel unqualified or unsure. When God calls us to serve, He often asks us to step outside of our comfort zones, to trust Him to equip us for the task at hand. Service is an act of trust, because we are relying on God to use us as instruments of His love and grace. Serving others in God's name means trusting that He will provide everything we need, whether it's wisdom, strength, or resources, so that we can be a blessing to those around us. It's about believing that God will use our efforts for His glory and the good of others, even if we don't see immediate results. When we serve and trust, we are joining God in His mission on earth, and in doing so, we experience the joy and fulfillment that come from walking in obedience to His calling. Serving others also teaches us to trust God in new ways. We may not always understand why He places us in certain situations or calls us to serve in particular ways, but by trusting Him, we open ourselves to experiences that grow our faith and deepen our dependence on Him. When we serve others, we reflect God's love, grace, and mercy, showing the world that our trust in Him compels us to give of ourselves for the sake of others. Trusting God in our personal purpose, we all long to know our purpose, to understand why we are here and what God has called us to do. Trusting God with our purpose means believing that He has uniquely created us with a divine plan in mind, even when we don't fully understand it yet. It requires faith that He is working behind the scenes to guide us into the fullness of what He has destined for us. When we trust God with our purpose, we stop striving for success on our own terms. We release our need to force things into existence and instead allow God to reveal His plan for our lives in His time. Trusting God with our purpose means surrendering our desires and ambitions to Him, believing that He will guide us into the opportunities, relationships, and experiences that will fulfill His purpose for us. As we trust God with our purpose, we also learn to be content in the waiting, knowing that His plan is far greater than anything we could come up with on our own. Trusting God in our purpose is an act of faith and obedience as we follow His lead, step by step, into the life He has prepared for us. The ultimate trust, knowing God will complete what He has started. One of the most comforting promises in Scripture is that God will finish the work He has begun in us. When we trust God, we are not trusting in a half-finished plan or in a God who gives up easily. We trust in a God who is faithful to complete what He starts, whether it's in our hearts, in our lives, or in the world around us. Trusting God means believing that He will bring us to the place He has promised, even when the journey is long, difficult, or unclear. It means trusting that the trials and challenges we face are part of the refining process that will lead us to the fulfillment of His plan. No matter how much we struggle or how uncertain the path may seem, we can trust that God is working in us and through us to bring about His perfect will. God is the author and finisher of our faith. He has already written the story, and we can trust that it will end with victory in Him. Our job is to trust Him with every chapter of our lives, knowing that He will guide us to the conclusion He has already ordained. The trust that transforms our fear into faith. Fear is one of the most common emotions we experience in life. It's natural to feel afraid when we face the unknown, when we're confronted with difficulties, or when our future is uncertain. However, trusting God in the midst of our fear is one of the most powerful acts of faith we can practice. It's not that fear disappears overnight, but when we choose to trust God, our fear doesn't have to control us. Faith doesn't deny fear, but it acknowledges God's greater power. Trusting God allows us to reframe our fears through the lens of His sovereignty. Instead of allowing fear to dictate our actions or freeze us in place, we can use that fear as a prompt to lean into God more deeply. We remind ourselves that God has not given us a spirit of fear, but of power, love, and a sound mind. Trusting in His perfect love helps us to understand that there is nothing to fear when we are held in His hands. When we trust God with our fears, we replace anxiety with peace. We allow His perfect love to cast out fear, knowing that no matter what happens, He is with us. By entrusting our fears to God, we not only find courage to move forward, but we also grow in understanding that His plan is far greater than our fears. Fear will no longer control us when we trust in the One who holds our future. Trusting God with our finances, faith in His provision. Finances are one of the most common areas where people struggle with trust. It can be incredibly difficult to trust God with our money, especially when we feel like there is never enough or when we are facing financial difficulties. But trusting God with our finances is a powerful act of faith that acknowledges God as the ultimate provider. When we trust God with our finances, we are saying that we believe He will supply all of our needs, according to His riches and glory. This doesn't mean we don't work hard or plan wisely. It means that we are placing our financial security in God's hands rather than in our own ability to provide. Trusting God with our finances means that we give generously, knowing that He will always provide for us. Trusting God in our finances involves practicing faithfulness in what we already have, even when it feels like it isn't enough. As we give, save, and spend with wisdom, we are trusting that God will bless our efforts and multiply what we have. It's not always easy, especially when we are in times of financial strain, but when we trust God to provide, we release the anxiety of worry and embrace peace. Moreover, God's provision doesn't always come in the way we expect, but we can trust that He will always meet our needs in His perfect timing. When we trust Him in this area, we begin to see how He works in and through our finances, using them to bless us and others. Ultimately, trusting God with our finances is a testimony of His faithfulness. Trusting God with our desires and dreams. God has created us with desires and dreams that reflect the unique purpose He has for our lives. However, trusting God with our desires means surrendering them to Him and allowing Him to shape them according to His will. We may dream of success, relationships, or personal fulfillment, but trusting God means letting go of our plans and allowing Him to bring to fruition what He knows is best for us. Sometimes our desires don't align with God's timing or His path for us. Trusting God with our dreams means submitting our vision to His greater plan. We trust that He sees the bigger picture and understands what we truly need, even if it's different from what we had imagined. Trusting God with our desires is not about giving up our dreams, but about seeking His will above our own. When we trust God, we invite Him to direct our steps toward the fulfillment of His purposes in our lives. As we surrender our dreams, we find that God often fulfills them in ways that are far more fulfilling than we could have ever imagined. Trusting God in this way allows us to walk in the fullness of what He has for us, even if it looks different from what we first envisioned. Trusting God with our relationships, whether with family, friends, or romantic partners, are fundamental to our lives, but they can also be a source of heartache and confusion. Trusting God with our relationships means acknowledging that He is the one who truly understands the people in our lives, and that He can guide us in how to love, forgive, and serve others. In relationships, it's easy to try and control the other person's actions or outcomes, but when we trust God, we let go of that control. We release our expectations and place our relationships in God's hands, trusting that He will guide us in how to love them well. Whether it's trusting God for healing in broken relationships or trusting Him for strength in challenging ones, God is faithful to walk with us through every relationship. Trusting God with our relationships also means allowing Him to lead us in choosing the right relationships. God knows our hearts and knows what's best for us. When we trust God to guide us, He leads us to the relationships that will help us grow and fulfill this purpose. And, just as importantly, He can help us release relationships that are not meant for our good. Trusting God with our identity and self-worth in a world that often defines us by our achievements, appearance, or social status, trusting God with our identity is a transformative act of faith. Our worth is not determined by what we do, how we look, or how others perceive us. Our true identity is found in Christ, and trusting God with our identity means embracing that truth fully. Trusting God with our identity means we no longer have to perform or strive for approval. We can rest in the truth that God has already declared us loved, chosen, and valuable. No matter what the world says about us or how we feel about ourselves, we trust that God's perspective is the only one that truly matters. This trust frees us from the need to compare ourselves to others, to live up to societal standards, or to constantly prove our worth. When we trust God with our self-worth, we no longer rely on external validation but on the deep, unshakable truth that we are His beloved children. We are free to walk confidently in who He has created us to be, knowing that our identity is secure in Him. The peace that comes from trusting God ultimately, trusting God brings peace. In a world that is full of uncertainty, challenges, and turmoil, trusting God is the anchor that keeps us grounded. When we trust in God's sovereignty, love, and provision, we experience a peace that transcends all understanding. This peace doesn't mean that life is without difficulty, but it means that we are not alone in our struggles. Trusting God brings peace in the midst of the storm, knowing that He is with us and that He will work all things for our good. It's the peace of knowing that no matter what happens, God is in control, and we can rest in His perfect care. When we trust God, we experience His presence more deeply. We feel His love surrounding us and His guidance leading us. This peace doesn't just settle us in difficult moments, it fills us with joy, confidence, and hope, knowing that the God we trust is faithful and true. The eternal security of trusting God. At the end of the day, trusting God is an investment in our eternal security. When we place our trust in God, we are not only trusting Him for our daily needs and challenges, but for our eternal future. We trust that, through Jesus Christ, we have eternal life, secure in the love and grace of God. Trusting God with our eternity means trusting Him with our salvation. We believe that Jesus Christ died for our sins and rose again, and through that trust, we are assured of eternal life with Him. Our security is not found in our own efforts, but in His finished work on the cross. Trusting God with our eternity gives us peace and hope. No matter what happens on this earth, we can rest in the assurance that our future is secure in Him. This trust brings freedom, knowing that we are never alone, and God is with us now and forever. Trusting God through trials and testing. Life is full of trials, moments where we feel tested beyond what we can handle, where everything seems uncertain, and our strength feels depleted. Trusting God through trials means leaning into Him during our lowest moments, believing that even in the midst of hardship, He is working for our good. It's in these seasons of difficulty that our faith is often refined. God uses trials to build our trust in Him, as they strip away our reliance on ourselves and our own abilities. When we trust God through trials, we acknowledge that His purpose is greater than our understanding. We may not see the end of the trial or understand why we are going through it, but we trust that He is shaping us for something greater. Trusting God during trials is not about ignoring the pain or pretending that everything is fine. It's about acknowledging the pain and difficulty, yet choosing to trust God in the process. It's knowing that He is present, even when we can't feel Him, and that His strength is made perfect in our weakness. Through these trials, we learn to lean on God's faithfulness. When we trust Him, we recognize that He can bring good from every situation, even the most difficult ones. Our faith grows stronger, and we become more resilient, with a deeper understanding of God's love and provision. Trusting God with our future. The future can often feel uncertain, with questions about where we are headed, what choices we should make, or what's next. Trusting God with our future means letting go of the need to control the outcomes and surrendering our plans into His hands. It's about believing that God holds our future and that He has a good plan for our lives, even if we can't see all the details yet. When we trust God with our future, we step out of the need to worry about what's coming next. We let go of the anxiety that comes from trying to predict or control the future. Instead, we focus on seeking God's will today, knowing that He will lead us step by step into the future He has for us. Trusting God with our future involves accepting the unknowns. It means acknowledging that we may not have all the answers, but we don't need to, because God does. We trust that His timing is perfect, and His plans are far better than anything we could ever create for ourselves. This trust provides us with peace, knowing that no matter what the future holds, we are held in the hands of a loving and trustworthy Father. When we surrender our future to God, we free ourselves from the burden of anxiety and embrace the peace that comes with trusting that He has everything under control. Trusting God with our dreams and desires. We all have dreams, things we long to achieve, experiences we want to have, and goals we want to pursue. But trusting God with our dreams and desires means surrendering them to Him and trusting that He knows what's best for us. Sometimes our dreams don't unfold the way we expect or in the timing we desire, but trusting God means believing that His dreams for us are even better than our own. Trusting God with our desires requires humility. It means submitting our plans to Him and asking for His guidance, knowing that He has the power to take our dreams and shape them in a way that aligns with His perfect will. When we trust God with our desires, we are also acknowledging that His timing and plan are always right, even if they don't align with what we had in mind. By trusting God with our dreams, we experience a freedom that comes from releasing control and embracing His perfect will. This trust invites us to live fully in the moment, knowing that our dreams are in God's hands, and He will lead us exactly where we need to be. Trusting God with our emotional health. Emotions can be intense and often unpredictable. We may feel overwhelmed by sadness, fear, anger, or frustration. Trusting God with our emotional health means acknowledging our emotions and allowing Him to work through them. It doesn't mean ignoring our feelings, but it does mean inviting God into our emotional lives and allowing Him to help us process them in healthy ways. When we trust God with our emotions, we open ourselves up to His peace and healing. We acknowledge that, though our emotions are real, they do not have to control us. God is not only concerned with our physical well-being but also with our emotional health. He wants to bring peace to our hearts, comfort to our souls, and healing to our minds. Trusting God with our emotional health means bringing our hurts and disappointments to Him in prayer. It's in His presence that we find true healing. God can help us process our emotions in a way that leads to peace, understanding, and wholeness. By trusting Him with our emotions, we allow Him to transform the way we experience and handle the ups and downs of life. Trusting God through rejection and failure. At times, we all experience rejection or failure. We may face setbacks in our careers, relationships, or personal goals, and these moments can shake our confidence and self-worth. However, trusting God through rejection and failure means recognizing that He does not define us by our mistakes. Our value is rooted in who we are in Him, not in what we achieve or how others perceive us. Trusting God during these difficult moments involves choosing to see rejection and failure as opportunities for growth. We believe that God can take these painful experiences and use them to build our character, refine our faith, and draw us closer to Him. Rejection is not a reflection of our worth, but an opportunity to trust that God has something better in store. Failure is also not the end. It's often a stepping stone to something greater. When we trust God through failure, we are choosing to believe that He can bring us back from disappointment and redirect us toward His purpose. We learn to embrace failure not as something to fear, but as part of the journey that leads us to His greater plan. The trust that brings freedom in letting go. One of the most liberating aspects of trusting God is the ability to let go of what we can't control. Whether it's past hurts, future concerns, or things that we hold onto out of fear or insecurity, trusting God with these burdens allows us to experience freedom. By surrendering control, we embrace the peace that comes with trusting that God is sovereign over all things. Letting go of the past can be one of the hardest things to do, but trusting God enables us to release guilt, regret, and shame. When we trust God, we allow His grace to cover our past, knowing that He has forgiven us and that we don't need to carry the weight of our mistakes anymore. Letting go of our worries about the future can also bring peace. Instead of being consumed with anxiety, we trust that God holds our future in His hands and that He will guide us along the way. When we trust God, we don't need to carry the weight of uncertainty because we know that He has a plan for our lives and will walk with us through every season. Trusting God in community. Trusting God is not meant to be a solitary journey. One of the most beautiful aspects of our faith is that we get to trust God together in community. Whether it's a small group, a church, or a group of close friends, trusting God together strengthens our faith and builds a supportive, loving network. When we trust God in community, we encourage one another, bear each other's burdens, and walk through life's challenges together. Trusting God with others means praying for one another, sharing our joys and struggles, and growing in faith as a collective. Community provides accountability, encouragement, and support, helping us trust God more fully. Together, we can face life's uncertainties and walk by faith, knowing that God has placed us in each other's lives for a reason. Trusting God in community helps us grow in our trust, deepen our relationships, and experience the joy of walking out our faith together. The ultimate trust, trusting God with eternity above all, the ultimate trust we place in God is in the promise of eternal life. No matter what happens in this life, we trust that God has secured our eternity through the sacrifice of Jesus Christ. This trust is the foundation of our faith, the belief that, no matter what struggles, pain, or uncertainties we face on earth, we are guaranteed a place with God forever. Trusting God with our eternity means that we live with the assurance that death is not the end, but merely a transition into the fullness of life with Him. We trust that He has gone to prepare a place for us, and that in His presence there will be no more pain, suffering, or sorrow. This trust gives us hope in the midst of trials, knowing that the challenges of this life are temporary, but the joy and peace of eternity are forever. Trusting God with eternity provides perspective, allowing us to navigate our earthly journey with a focus on the eternal promises He has made to us.